When it comes to presentation tips, how did you get good at speaking? And are there certain things that, like, let's say the average presenter should learn from a magician? Like, what kind of tips and tricks? Like, are there like fun ones, like something that you know every single time it will land?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I've learned over the years is I film myself as much as possible whenever I do a show or whenever I do a presentation, even when I'm just giving a presentation virtually, I film everything. I'm very critical about myself. So what I do is after I take that piece of film, after the presentation, after the show, I'll go back and analyze it frame by frame. And here's a cool trick I have. No pun intended, because it's not a magic trick. But what I do is I'll just watch the video. So just by watching the video and putting yourself on mute, you're only looking for your nonverbal communication. So am I, just nonverbal communication skills? Am I doing a good job with that? And then I'll go back and I'll review the footage, but I'll only listen to myself. I won't look at the video. I'll kind of close my eyes, or I'll delete the video section. I'll just listen. Am I emphasizing on the right words? Am I saying the right things? Do I like the flow of how I'm saying things? And then also a great tip is I also have another camera on the audience. So I'll go back and I'll look at the audience. Are they reacting when I want them to react? Are they laughing at the jokes I have? Things like that. So those are things that I've been doing a lot. And you really pick up on these subtle habits that you have. For instance, I did a keynote in San Diego last year, and I reviewed the footage, and I realized that I used the word right a lot. So after every sentence, I would say right or okay, or so I would use those two words, and I said, oh wow, I'm using those words a lot. Okay, I have to work on those. But I would have never guessed that if I didn't film myself, if I didn't review the footage. So that's definitely a big tip I would definitely recommend for people. And doing virtual shows now, doing virtual presentations, this is a great way to do it, because if you have a Zoom presentation, you just record the Zoom session. And I do a lot of shows and keynotes now, obviously virtually, and I can record the audience. So this is really cool because I can see the moment that everyone starts to react. So it's really cool, because when you're on stage and during a live show, you can't really see every person's reaction at the same time. So with the audience, I can see, okay, is the majority of the audience reacting when I want them to react, or there's only one person reacting, stuff like that, because you can see everyone's reaction at the same time. So that's definitely my recommendation.
So specifically, there are moments where you want the audience to react. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yep. So that's and it doesn't have to be even the trick too, because everything I'm saying right now, I'm a magician, so I do entertainment for a living, but I'm also a keynote speaker. So I do a lot of keynote presentations that's on education as well. So everything I'm saying right now is applicable to both of those things. So it could even be a story I tell in the very beginning. I love to tell stories, so it could be a story I tell in the very beginning. Are they reacting when I want them to? Are they laughing when I want them to? When I do a trick, are they amazed, or are they a little skeptical? If I go back, I'm like, wait a minute, why did that person, not react and kind of turn their head? Did I say something confusing? Are they trying to figure out the trick? If they're trying to figure out the trick right now, then therefore I didn't do a good enough job, right? So it's all these little things that I've picked up over the years. But definitely filming yourself. I have footage, when I was in, 7th and 8th grade when I first got into magic. And I used to perform everywhere I would go, and I would always have a little camera with me. This is before they were iPhones, so I would have my friends film me whenever I go. So I would go up to random strangers, hey, can I do a trick to you? And my friends didn't want to do that. I know they didn't want to do that. They were like, oh my God, why are we filming John again? We just want to get a pizza or whatever it was. But it really helped me in the long run, because I was able to really nail down my strong points, and weaknesses. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. What about, I think, because you do magic, actually, I'm going to go to the audience who's tuning in live right now. You have
Cool.
some fans coming on. You have Jen saying, John Logan is the best.
Thank you.
Jen.
How's it
Uh,
going, Jen?
and then
Jen's
we have
awesome.
Jane was liking your tip earlier, about recording and watching yourself. I want to read what she was saying. I have heard uh, Conan O'Brien used to watch each show's replay to review and improve his performance, right? I think that's
Yeah.
one of the missing pieces. Like John was saying earlier, he would rewatch his performance, tape the audience in person. But now virtually, it's so easy to tape everyone on Zoom, for example. You can get everyone's reaction, see how you are doing, see how you are speaking. But John, I think that when it comes to, let's say, magic, when I think of magic, I'm kind of already kind of engaged already. I'm like, oh, there might be a mystery aspect to it. But what if someone, is working a job and they have to present something dull and boring? Like, are there certain things that you do that makes your content more engaging that others can apply as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think kind of going back to your comment about magicians, I think magicians get a bad rap because I think, in any other career, magic is essentially we know something you don't know. Unfortunately, that's what it is. We know the secret to something that you don't know. So a lot of people have this weird mentality when they're watching magic shows. So some people perceive the magician as this superior person in the room. I don't want them to think that way, but our subconscious over the years, how culture has portrayed magicians, people are very skeptical in the crowd. People think that the magician thinks that they are sometimes he'd be better than the other people. So I try to eliminate that as much as possible. I don't want that stereotype. So what I do, I'll start off with an embarrassing story about myself, or I'll start off with something that I did that humanizes me, that makes me feel embarrassed. So it kind of has everyone on the same page. Get people laughing, like, oh my God, I spilled coffee on me this morning, whatever. It can be whatever it is, but it doesn't make you this perfect superior person that can do magic and knows all the secrets to life, right? So that's that's something that I do. I start off with, in my shows, my keynote, I'll start off with a story. But if you're doing just a presentation, you can just start off with a corny joke, right? Or it can just be something that you felt embarrassed, or just a funny story, right? Just get people in a good mood right off the bat, right before you start talking about your presentation. It kind of gets everyone on the same playing field, I guess, for the lack of a better word.
Yeah, I love that. Starting with a story, it's simple, but at the same time, a lot of people don't do it. Actually, I want to talk about messing up as a
Yeah.
magician. How many? I mean, right in front of the audience, it's like it could be actually that simple, but they just can't see it or they don't know it, or maybe you've messed up so many times that they don't even know it. How do you have an example of how you messed up? And usually, like, what do you do if you do mess up, and how do you transition?
That's a great question. So that's kind of a two-part question, because that can be applied to magic and it can also be applied to keynotes. So kind of going for the magic perspective, so I call this the sandwich effect. So if you have a new trick that you've never done before and you want to test out on an audience, what I do is I put it in between a trick that I know really well that gets really good reactions, then the new trick, and then another trick that gets really good reactions. And so just in case I mess up on that middle trick, or something doesn't go right, or the audience doesn't react, I know that they just saw something really good and I know they're about to see something really good. Sometimes if it doesn't work, I'll just straight out and say, oh man, I really was hoping, how amazing would that be if that actually worked though? That would have been incredible. Okay, let's try something else though, right? And people don't even realize that you messed up, right? It's the weirdest thing. Like if you say you messed up, people just, and you laugh about it, and you don't act like you're embarrassed or anything. You just kind of go with the flow and be like, oh man, but if I got your card, that would have been an amazing trick. Okay, I'm going to try something a little bit different. People are just going to laugh and go with the flow. So that's one thing that I talk about. So kind of going back, kind of being applied to someone who doesn't perform magic. If you're talking about a new topic in a presentation, put it in between things that you're really comfortable talking about, because you're gonna start on a strong note, then you're gonna do the new topic, then you're gonna know that you're gonna end on a strong note as well. So in terms of keynote presentations, or just really in terms of shows in general, I prepare. I'm one of those people who prepares a lot with everything. I have pages and notes. For instance, I'm doing a lot of emceeing events as well virtually. I did in person, but doing a lot of virtual emceeing events. And one of an event that I just did a few days ago was with 𝐊𝐃𝐄𝐎, which is a country singer. And this company had this big online virtual conference, and they had 𝐊𝐃𝐄𝐎, this country singer, as the main entertainment to do a virtual show. And after a show, I did a Q&A with them. I was the host, I was the MC to do a Q&A with them. And I practiced for a week of the 10 questions I was going to ask them, how I was going to introduce myself. The 10 questions, actually I had 5 questions, these are the 5 backup questions in case we have more time. I had everything scripted out to the T, right? Well, what ended up happening is he was running a little bit behind schedule. So me and the president of the company and another employee, it was us 3 improvising and just talking about random stuff for about 15 minutes in front of 300 people, just trying to make things natural. So I'm like, okay, well now, rather than introducing myself, the original plan was to introduce myself after his set and as I'm doing the Q&A, but now I have to introduce myself because people may not know who I am now. So everything kind of got mixed up in a different order. And then afterwards, he ended on that was one of my questions. I was asking him about one of the songs. And I'm like, well, I should probably ask this question first now because it's a good transition into it. So now everything kind of got mixed up in a bunch of order, and I improv'd a lot, and it was totally off script. So I had everything memorized to the T, to now everything was totally off script. So my suggestion to everyone is be prepared as much as possible, but also be prepared to go to pivot and know when to pivot and know the material so well that you know how to go in a different direction. So I think I've seen a lot of magicians, a lot of keynote speakers that have everything scripted out to the T, and then someone's phone goes off, in the audience, and it kind of messes up their zone. They kind of freeze and don't really know what to do. Try to take advantage of that moment. I did a trick where someone's phone went off, and they're like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry." I put it away. I'm like, "No, pick it up. Ask that person on the line to think of a card." And rather than, because my next trick, I was going to have someone pick a card, but I had the person on the phone pick a card, and it was 100 times better, right? So know the material so well that you know when to pivot and how to take advantage of situations that don't go as planned. That would be my advice.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about actually the pivoting side of things.
Yeah.
You just said when something doesn't work, you'll probably react to the audience. Was that always natural for you, or did you have to learn how to do it? Because, a lot of speakers and presenters out there, the fire alarm is going off, whatever, something happens, they don't react to it. Some audience members do it, and they get like, oh, it's not what I prepared. Do you have any tips on how to be more, reactive to the audience or what's happening around you? Or what should you do?
Yeah, I would say lean into the joke or lean into the moment. Don't get caught off guard by it. Don't make it seem you don't know what to do. Like, for instance, if the fire alarm, let's say I was performing a show and all of a sudden the fire alarm went off, I'd be like, bam, that was a pretty good trick. I just made the fire alarm go off, and now I'm going to make everyone disappear. We're going to appear outside, lean into it, right? Use it to your advantage. People are going to laugh at it. So that's definitely my advice. Don't, if for some reason, your technology all of a sudden fails and blows up or whatever, right? Be like, oh man, the pros and cons of technology nowadays, right? Or something, right? I know I've seen a lot of presenters kind of freeze up and they don't know what to do. Remember that the audience doesn't know your presentation. They don't know your show. And if something crazy like the fire alarm goes off, something like that, they weren't expecting it as well. So try to just try to picture yourself in the eyes of the audience member as well. What do you think that they're thinking if you were in their shoes, and there was a different presenter up there, a different entertainer up there, and something happened? As an audience member, what would be going through your mind, right? Try to think of it from that perspective, and then just act that way, right? Everyone's a human being, right? Nothing in life goes as planned, right? So I would just try to look at it from their perspective and try to act like how you would act if you were in their shoes as well. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. John, as you're speaking, of course, I tried to dabble with magic a little bit. And when I first started dabbling with it, my first thoughts were, man, this trick is so easy. Why can't the audience understand this? It's like I kind of have to keep like a secret in the back of my mind, like hoping that they won't see something. I'm not sure if you know what I mean, but like that part for me was actually the most nerve-wracking. It's like, okay, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? So how have you dealt with like nerves or that feeling of like, okay, is it going to go well? Is it not going to go well in the past?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think magic I'm just being biased because I'm a magician, but I think magic is one of the hardest careers because the answers to everything. And there's two elements of a magic show, right? Number one is if everyone knew the secret to the tricks, it really wouldn't be a good show, right? So not only do you have to develop and perform tricks that would fool people, but you also have to be entertaining, right? Like I know a lot of magicians who go up there are phenomenal magicians in terms of sleight of hand, and it's incredible, but they don't really have a lot of showmanship. I also know a lot of magicians who I would go to their show and I know how they do every single trick, but I would go back there because they're so entertaining. So their showmanship, the way they interact with the audience, and I lean towards that. I always lean towards, if you're going to go to a magic show, I guarantee you when you leave the show, you're only going to remember about 20% of the actual tricks I did. The step-by-step of what I said and what I actually did. You're going to remember the experience, how I made you feel during the show, how I connected with you, the stories I told, and how the end of the trick made you feel, not the exact process of the words I said, right? So I'm one of those magicians where let's say I perform, I don't know, 10 tricks in a show. I'm actually okay if people think that they know how I did 3 of them. I'm just making up that number, right? As long as they're all having a good time and I'm entertaining. And actually, some of my shows, I actually teach a trick. Kind of going back to what I said in the beginning, where I try to humanize myself. Some shows, I'll actually say, you guys have been great. You guys will actually want to learn one of the first tricks I learned, and I'll teach a trick. And I've just found that builds more of a connection, because what they're going to do, they're going to take that trick, they're going to go back to their friends and family, they're going to perform that trick, and their friends and family are going to say, "Well, where'd you learn that? That's pretty cool." And they're like, "Oh, well, this magician John, we're all in it." Then they get start talking about me, right? It's word of mouth marketing, right? So that's kind of how I view it. But you are right, Kit, in the sense that magic is very hard, because you have to develop something that ultimately does fool someone. Again, I go for the entertainment factor. Are people having a good time? it's okay if they figure out how I did the trick, but if people have a good time, and then the trickery part. But it is very hard because some tricks I do are very easy to perform in a sense, and some tricks I do are very difficult to perform in a sense. But people I have to make sure that people of course don't know how I do it, and which is the ultimate hard part about it.
Yeah, I love that you brought up, showmanship. I think that was the word I was looking for. So how does one actually develop, in your opinion, that showmanship? And if you are watching live right now, thank you for joining us. Let us know if you have any questions. And if you are watching the replay of this, thank you still for joining us. And drop your questions and thoughts in the comments below. But how does one develop showmanship, in your opinion?
That's a great question. How does someone develop showmanship? What I tend to do is every person has their unique style, and I think what I've learned over the years is when I first got into magic, I had this very serious persona to me, like, okay, I'm going to read your mind, very focused on the word, like, right, and it was good, it was fine, right, but the more I did it, the more I was saying things that I was more comfortable with, and the more I would be like, oh, wow, actually just said that off the cuff and people laughed at it. Okay, maybe I'll stick with that joke in my show. So I think the ultimate answer to showmanship is you just have to do it more and you'll find your own voice. I know a lot of magicians who try to mimic and say the same jokes as previous magicians. And here's actually a really unique story that I talk about in my keynote. Is that there's a trick out there where a magician takes a notepad, big notepad, they draw a bowling ball in the notepad. They take the notepad, they squeeze the notepad, and a real bowling ball falls out. It's called the appearing bowling ball. Well, once a magician did that on TV, every single magician started doing that into the show. The same tricks, the same presentation, the same drawing of the bowling ball, everything was exactly the same. The fascinating thing was that some magicians were getting fantastic reactions, and some magicians weren't. They were doing the same trick with the same jokes. Why were people getting different reactions? Well, this woman named 𝐂𝐄𝐓 Drescher, she's a great magician. I would highly recommend connecting with her. 𝐂𝐂𝐓 Drescher. She said, well, a bowling ball doesn't really fit my style. I'm a female magician, and there's really not a lot of female magicians out there. Well, how can I kind of take advantage of this. So rather than drawing a bowling ball, she drew a pair of heels. She drew a pair of heels on the notepad. She closed the notepad. She squeezed the notepad. A real pair of heels fell out. She put the pair of heels on, and she began her show. And her show is called Magic in Heels. Well, that caught the attention of David Copperfield, who's a very famous magician, and now they collaborate together. So the whole concept is, don't try to copy other people's presentation style. The more you do it, the more you're going to realize, well, I have this unique feature about me. How can I integrate that into my presentation or act, something like that? Try to make it a little bit more personable, based on who you are. If you really want to go into, I just watch some people that you think are really good public speakers. See what they do. Don't copy them. Just write down what they do that you enjoy about them, and then kind of go back and say, okay, I like this part about them. Okay, here's what makes me different. And then again, goes back to what I said in the very beginning. Film yourself every single time you have a presentation. Every single time, it can just be when you're just giving a simple PowerPoint presentation to a few people, on your team, in the business. Film yourself with everything. So that's my recommendation, is just film yourself as much as possible. Go back, analyze it, and you'll really figure out, what your voice is.
Ooh, I really like that thought you gave, about the bowling ball. Just be yourself at the end of the day. How can you tweak it to yourself? We have some questions coming in from the audience. But actually, John, I want to ask you and the audience, do you want to see John do a magic trick? But I actually want to see John do a magic trick, but break down the presentation aspect of it. What do you think, John? I'm going to let that go in the back of your mind.
Yeah, I'll have to get something. But I think probably because if you want to go, if the best way to probably view a magic, if you go to my website is, johnlogan.com, because you can see the whole presentation, and there's a bigger screen, you can see people reacting, you can really see the elements of it. So it might be a little tough just with the screen here, but so if you just go to JOHNDUKELOGAN.com. My website's also impossible, it's just a word.com. It goes to the same website, and you can see me performing over the years. But I can definitely dissect, the psychology of a magic trick if you want me to do that.
Oh, I think we would love that. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so there's a few different ways that I develop a trick. So you have this, and this can be applied to anything in life as well. So you have the top-down approach, which means, okay, this is my vision. Let's say I'm gonna go with the corniest trick I can think of, pulling a bunny out of a hat, right? I don't do those tricks, but I feel it's a trick that everyone can relate to. So let's say, okay, the trick is I want to pull a bunny out of a hat. Okay, that's the ultimate end result, the end result of the trick that people are gonna say, okay, now I have to work backwards. How am I gonna actually achieve this? So you work backwards, right? You have the ultimate goal, you work backwards. And then this could be applied to anything in life. Let's say you want your company to make $1 million in revenue in 1 year, right? Okay, that's the ultimate goal. Now work backwards. What's the plan to achieve that goal? So that's the top-down approach. Or you can do the bottom-up approach, which means, okay, here are my skill sets. Here are the sleight of hand moves I know. Here are the props I have. How can I put all the puzzle pieces together to make something amazing? So those are the two approaches. So I may know a lot of maybe sleight of hand moves, but say, okay, well, if I rearrange them this way and this way and this way, okay, I also have this cup here. Could I do something with the cup? How can I integrate that, right? And then you build something based off of that. So that could be with going back to a corporation, what are your team's strengths? What are your team's weaknesses? What makes you different than your competitors? How can you integrate them all together to make something amazing? So there's a top-down approach and the bottom-up approach. So that's how I approach magic. There's also the concept of, okay, what's something that everyone's talking about, in pop culture? What's relevant in pop culture? Because that makes it, like you say, kid, all the time, storytelling, right? People love stories. So if you're talking about something that's pop culture related, that's gonna instantly make a connection. So can you tell a story and do a trick off of that as well? And then just in terms of the actual magic trick, I like to do you start off simple, and I always like to do that twist ending concept. So for instance, Penn and Teller, a great example. These are two magicians who are quite simply rated the best two magicians ever to live. They're an act called Penn and Teller. They do a trick in their show, and they're very famous for this, of leading the audience down one path. So they think they know, the audience thinks they know what's going to happen. Then they take a completely sharp left turn, and they do a twist ending. So for example, there's a trick where they bring someone down from the audience. They take their cell phone, and Penn, one of the magicians, throws the phone behind his back. Another magician, Teller, catches it. But everyone in the audience can see that they just took that person's phone and threw it behind the back. But the person up on stage doesn't know that. So everyone is kind of in on the audience. Okay, so Teller has a phone now, whatever, right? So everyone thinks that Teller has a phone. But what ends up happening, a few minutes later, they say, okay, you can have someone call the phone. And there's a big box in the audience, and the box starts ringing. Like, oh, what's in the box? So they bring the box up on stage. They plop the box on stage, and they cut the box open. There's a dead fish, in the box. So they take the knife, they cut open the fish, and inside the fish is the phone, right? So everyone thinks it's going in one direction, that Teller has the phone, and then all of a sudden it's this big twist ending where the phone teleports into a fish that was in a box in the audience. So that's a cool concept. So I like doing that twist ending concept where you think you're going down one route and then you do something entirely different. And this can go back to marketing in organizations as well, where let's say Apple is going to come out with a new iPhone 20, whatever it is, right? Well, they could say, okay, well, it's going to be waterproof. The screen won't break. It says all these facts, right, about this new phone. Well, then all of a sudden, the day before they release it, they say, "Oh yeah, we forgot to tell you, our bad, that if you drop it from the Empire State Building, it won't crack at all," right? People are like, "Wait, what? That's crazy," right? So you don't give them everything all at once. You do some sort of twist ending concept, or if you're throwing in an event or whatever, give them all the details, and then the day before the event, give them one last detail that they didn't know about to make them start thinking about it again. So that's kind of how I approach it as well. I like to do that.
Oh man, great. That's John. That's great. And actually, iPhone 20 is not that far away. I think.
I know, right?
I wonder what's next for iPhone. Just snap a finger, it'll appear right in front of
Literally,
you.
it's crazy. It's crazy.
I want to bring up a question from Jerry. He's asking, well, since everyone has their own technique, how do you mix your keynote message with entertainment? Actually, this is a great question too. As in, like, I'm also thinking if people are in like regular business meetings, like how can they make it more engaging and entertaining? But how do you mix your keynote message with entertainment? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's kind of my element to my keynote. The core of my keynote is that I integrate two passions of mine, which is magic is number one, and another one is how to develop innovation, how to develop creativity. And I think the word innovation and creativity are so overused right now that actually I don't like using those words, because I think everyone uses those words. So I try to use different words that really show like what is true innovation, what is true creativity. But anyway, so I try to combine that. So what I do personally, and then I'll explain what you can do as well, is I'll explain a strategy, in my show. So for instance, if you're trying to think of a new idea, one strategy I call is changing one word to an existing concept. So for instance, there's a trick I do in my show where I have someone take a card out. Actually, kid, I think I did this at one of your events. Someone take a card out, they sign the card. I and I put it back in the middle of the deck. I go in the audience. I take the deck and I throw it on stage, and there's a cup on stage, and their card lands inside the cup. So if we take that whole concept and we condense it, it's called card to cup, right? We condense it. Well, let's change one word to develop a new concept. Rather than card to cup, why do we card to wall? Okay, so I take the card to the wall, their card gets stuck on the wall. Okay. Or rather card to wall, why do card in wall? What if their card was inside the wall? That'd be pretty cool. Okay, well, rather than card in wall, why don't I do phone in wall? So what if I took someone's phone, I made it vanish and end up inside the wall? So you see how we did card to cup to phone and wall, two completely different tricks, but just by changing one word, you can make something entirely new. So kind of going back to a business perspective, if you think about Instagram's model is you post a picture, it can be up there as long as you want, right? So it's this unlimited photo time app, right? You can unlimited photo time. Well, Snapchat came along and said, well, let's just, rather than do unlimited photo time, why don't we just do limited photo time, right? And that's what Snapchat is. So kind of going back to your question, what I'll do is I'll perform a trick for everyone in the audience, get people in a good mood, engaging, stuff like that. Then I'll explain how I developed the trick, and then I'll explain this based on the strategy. This is how it can be applied to a business setting as well. So hopefully that answered your question in terms of how I develop my keynote and integrate entertainment into my keynote. So you're learning, but in a really fun and hands-on way. And going back to how it can be applied to your setting, especially virtual nowadays. I feel like virtual meetings, everyone is zoomed out, what I call it, right? Everyone is, attending all these meetings, right? So how do you make it a little bit different? Start out with a magic trick. It breaks stuff up a little bit, and you say, hey guys, I've been working on this cool trick before we start the meeting. Is it okay if I try this new trick on you? That's just gonna wake them up. You're like, oh, well, yeah, sure, right? And just do a trick, which I can if you shoot me an email, I'll send you a trick. So shoot me an email. It's info@johndukelogan.com, and I'll send you a PDF of a trick that you can do online. But yeah, so just I would just start off the meeting, with a mad trick or even a joke, or again, kind of going back to what I just said, in the very, very beginning, just a story or a fun story. It can be just kind of a funny, embarrassing story, just to get people just to chuckle, right? That's all you want. You just want a good chuckle, to start off the meeting, to get people in a fun mood. So that's how I do. And then if you want to do any presentation, make any presentation, you definitely follow Kit, because he does. Kit, you do webinars and presentations and videos on that all the time, to how to make your PowerPoint presentation more engaging. So he's the master for that. Yeah.
Yeah, but no magic tricks for me. All I know is how to.
That's pretty good, though. That's pretty good.
I love how you were walking us through your mindset of, like from card to cup, card to wall. I think it's that creativity, and also nitpicking that and thinking about, okay, what else can you do with that trick that can be applied to presentations as well? Maybe it's a story, or what else can I do with that story? What else can I do to prove the point, right? Not just a story. You can maybe compare and contrast. Maybe you can ask people a question. So what can you do to also, at the end of the day, prove that point? I want to bring up a question from Monique. How do you decide at which point to mark a pause in the presentation of the trick?
Yep, that's a great question. So it goes back to what I said about filming yourself, because I've learned that over the years that sometimes, and magicians make this mistake all the time, myself included, is that if you're going to do a trick and then another trick right afterwards, perform the trick, have people react, then transition into the next one. I think a lot of magicians are so focused on going, okay, I need to do this trick and this trick and this, and they don't allow people to just take in the moment. Take in the moment. If people are laughing, just sit there, enjoy the moment, right? And allow people to just interact with each other, enjoy it. This is actually a cool exercise that I like to do. Is I like to emphasize. Well, I know it doesn't directly answer your question. What points to mark in the pause, but it's related to that. It kind of relates back to what words to emphasize on, and because I could say a sentence to you, and based on the words I emphasize on, you could perceive the sentence differently. So I like to give this example of the sentence. I never said she stole your money. Okay, so the sentence, I never said she stole your money. Now I'm going to say the sentence again, but I'm going to emphasize on a different word and see how you perceive the sentence differently. Okay, so I never said she stole your money. 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 So isn't that cool? So based on the words I emphasize on, you could perceive the sentence completely different. So I try to do that in my show as well, where maybe one show I'll say the same sentence, but I'll just emphasize on a different word, and just see how people react. Rather than say pick any card, I'll say pick any card. And so the difference between there is, if I say pick any card, even though it could be the same exact sentence of pick any card, the word that emphasizes the emphasis on the any provides a more psychological freedom in their mind of saying, oh, okay, any card. Okay, I can select any card here, right? It's the same sentence, right? But just by me emphasizing a different word, people can perceive the sentence differently. So I would definitely provide that advice, that if you're going to give a presentation, try to just emphasize in different words. If you're a salesperson, right, and you're trying to get a sale or something, maybe emphasize a different word that you normally don't emphasize on, and see how that works. So that's kind of I know it kind of went off track a little bit there, but in terms of going back to the original question of pausing, I think whenever there's a magical moment, I like to call it, I like to just sit back, relax, and let the audience, all take it in. Yeah.
I like how you're saying, it's just not trick. This reminds me of like bullet point.
Yeah.
But you have to let the audience digest what you are saying, maybe ask you questions, maybe you can let them laugh a little bit, maybe you can let them digest the information and get it, instead of just going on and on and on and on. And John, again, where can people follow you and connect with you further?
Yeah, so my website is johndukelogan.com. So JOHNDUKELOGAN.com. Definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm really active on LinkedIn. It's just John Duke Logan. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. So it's all the same to John Duke Logan. But definitely connect with me on LinkedIn. I post a lot on LinkedIn, and yeah.
That's great. So if you are loving this content, I always like to say this is the beginning of the conversation. Connect with John for further tips and also watch his magic as well. And if you did not get a chance to subscribe to the Boston Speaks YouTube channel yet, where we interview amazing individuals just like John and have many other great programming on there, make sure you go to Boston Speaks on YouTube and subscribe. So John, at the very end of our interview, I always like to give my guest a one, ask you to do it, but a 1-minute message on what people can take away from presentation tips from a magician. So I would like to ask you, what do you think is your 1-minute message today?
Yeah, I think magicians are masters at bringing people together to share a common experience. And in my opinion, the best magicians are the best presenters because they can do that. And to me, magic isn't the trick. Magic is the impossible become impossible. So that moment of everyone coming together to share a common experience, that moment to me is the magic. So if you have a goal in your life that you think is impossible to achieve, a personal goal, a professional goal, something on your bucket list, but you just witnessed me perform magic, which again is the impossible become impossible, you'd be contradicting yourself if you think that your goal in life will be impossible to achieve. So I think it begins with the little things in life. It begins with little habits that build up to the big things that we can really achieve, our impossible goals. And I think it goes directly with presentation. I think the best magicians out there are the best showmen, the best presenters. And if you can really achieve that, and have the audience change their perspective on life in one element or another, to me, that is magic, and you achieved your goal.
Thank you, John, for answering that. So if you are tuning in live and you are still watching this live or watching the replay, thank you for tuning in. And we know that your professional development, your presentation skills and leadership skills are important to you. So let's continue the conversation. Follow John, subscribe to Boston Speaks. And John, I want to say again, just thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us and wisdom with us today.
Of course. Thank you, Kit, for having me. Thank you for everyone for tuning in. If you're watching the replay, again, feel free to still connect with me. And yeah, thank you so much for having me.
All right. Have a good one, everyone. Take care.